Hello, this is the Chico, California Steak Life Sketches webcast, and I'm Jerry Crosby, and I'm here today with Sonny Baird, who's been very, very kind to come and let us interview him and question him a little bit about his life. And I didn't know you very well before this interview came up, Sonny, and I was really intrigued with your life, and in particular, as you were sharing with me, how you really had a childhood in two different places, and how that created your spirituality, your career goals, and how that affected you. Can you explain to us a little bit about where you were born and how you grew up and how you ended up kind of having a two-state childhood?
Sure. So when I was young, my parents divorced, and they both started families separately, which is, I guess, a curse and a blessing, but it was a great experience for me. And I grew up in Grantsville, Utah, which is a tiny little town. When I was there was about 5,000 people. No stoplights, just a tiny little place in Utah. That was the last town until you hit the border of Nevada, at least civilized town, I should say. And I was there until, I thought it was about 4th or 5th grade, and this was in the 80s. And then my mother and stepfather, they moved to California, to the Bay Area, and I went with them. And so I was there for until high school.
And what city was that in the Bay Area?
That was in San Jose. We were in San Jose, and that was amazing. That was in the 90s when, the .com was happening, and so I got to live through all of that, go from orchards and seeing buildings come up and everything else. So it was a great experience to go from small town to big town.
And what was life like in the small town?
Well, the small town, everyone knows everybody, and I had multiple generations of family there, and that was always great. I had grandmothers and grandparents, and I had 2 sets of everything, which was always great. And so that was really fun of it. And my family owned businesses there. They actually owned restaurants for generations in that area, and so it was great to live in a small town
And know everybody.
and you knew everybody.
And so then you come to San Jose, and that's a different kind of culture. What were the positives there?
So I think the biggest positive was just opportunity. When you grow up in a small town, there's only so much to do. And then when you go to a bigger city, there's all kinds of things to do, especially in the Bay Area at that time. It was amazing. And my parents were entrepreneurs as well. They had their own business. So both sets of parents had restaurants and businesses, and so I got to grow up in that atmosphere. So I worked, as when I was really small, all the way in forever, it seems like. But it was great. It was a good opportunity. I think the big thing was it was more transplanted. There wasn't the generations that you have in the smaller towns. And so you really had to rely on, your community, which, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, it was great because the members and the wards really stuck together. That was your extended family.
And that was in San Jose.
That was in San Jose.
So the ward becomes the family.
Yeah, and that was great.
Mm-hmm. And did you find for yourself personally that your interaction with the church changed?
I think so, quite a bit. We felt there was a big difference between Utah and maybe the Bay Area or California in a sense of members, because they do have to rely a little bit more on each other. And so, especially in the youth program, it was quite different. I remember moving into the Bay Area, and the youth program was massive. I mean, I think there was just probably 30 kids just in our ward. And so the stake was massive. There was, huge events and camps, all kinds of things that happen throughout the year. And so growing up there in the youth program was amazing. I mean, it was much different than what I experienced in Utah.
Mm-hmm. And if you were there for your high school years, did you have to do the early morning seminary and stuff?
No, I actually, when I moved back to Utah in high school, because I went to spend some time with my dad and his family, which was amazing. And no, they had seminary during the day. So in high school, I didn't have to worry about getting up and going to seminary, which I think I paid for it because I was a seminary teacher here as an adult for about 4 years. So I did have to experience that. But yeah, in high school, that's, it's taking seminary during the day is not it's great and it's bad. It's much easier just to leave than not. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Okay, and what kind of were some of your hobbies and things? You said you worked for your parents a lot. Did you have other interests or hobbies as a child?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I was always into cars or anything with four wheels. And I remember getting a go-kart when I was quite young. And this is before I had really moved to California. And man, I got hooked. It was amazing. And I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a stuntman. So we would push that go-kart and jump off bikes and do all, we were the ones building the jumps and doing everything crazy. And I think that's when I really got interested in moving machines, or specifically cars, and it just have stuck.
And so it has stuck. So do you want to tell people a little bit about what you do for
so I've been
a living now?
I've been in the car business for about 30 years. And that's kind of all started there when I was younger, and really focusing on, cars. And, when I was younger, I thought, hey, we can, soup up the cars and, be part of a racing team or something, and then realized that's not reality in life. And so I actually went into the car business when I was really young.
And so when you say you went into the car business, you're not an automotive repair person.
No, I went into the dealership side. So I started out in sales and then worked through all the different positions, and, now I'm running a store. So
good for you. And do you still work on motors? Do you still tinker with cars?
I wasn't really the mechanical part. I'm not very mechanically inclined.
It was the speed and driving?
It was more of that part. Yeah, the mechanical inclined part was more losing parts and breaking things.
Yeah, my family will tell you I'm into the speed and driving part as well. It's a problem. And so you have a business now, and where's your business now?
I'm in Orland. Yep, we have a Mitsubishi dealership there, and it's great. And
that is wonderful. Tell us a little bit about meeting your wife, and how did that all turn out?
That was an amazing experience for me. I had moved back to California after high school. Went and did the small thing. It was a big fish in a small pond, and it was great. But went back and started working for my parents, and they had a concrete restoration company, and worked for them. And I was just working all the time. My mother was, I think, perpetually always in the young women's, or worked with the youth. She was a seminary teacher for a very long time, and she knew someone. There was a connection. I'm not sure how. I'm sure my wife can tell it better, but there was a connection there where, she was trying to set me up to go out with a group of youth, or this would be young adults, I guess, at this time, like YSA, to go to a dance. And so I remember my wife actually called me, or I think we had pagers at that time, and she'll probably know better again, but we had pagers, so I called the number back, and she'd answered like some IBM, big name, like, oh, I must have got the wrong number. But I think she was more playing it up, that she worked at IBM and she was a big wig there. And so then I hung up and then called back again, and she answered, this is Jody. And so that was kind of fun, our first interaction. And we kind of set it up, and we went out, and I remember going and finding out, she had her own car. Me being in cars, like, oh, this is good. This is your own car. And then to find out it was a little sporty, and it was, looked great. And I was like, oh, this is a huge check mark.
Did that just seal the deal for you?
Pretty much at that point. I mean, I don't want to say, shallow or anything. But yeah, that was a huge part. She'd bought her own car, and it was actually, pretty amazing. And
so was your first date this dance then?
It was this dance. And then after that, we've spent every day together.
So Mama knew best.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. She I'm not sure the plan worked out how she wanted, but after that, we literally spent every day together.
Okay, and you shared that she worked for IBM.
She did.
Back when it was, in its nascent stage.
Yes.
And how did that affect your marriage, and how did that work as a couple?
It was great. We dated for a couple of years and started our family real early. And she had, kind of a bigger career. I was still working for my parents, figuring out, how I was going to get in the car business. And so she was, really the breadwinner. I mean, she had a great job. And so I stayed home, actually, for about 6 months. And it was amazing. It was like one of the best times of my life, I think, I'm not saying it was easy, but it was great. Britt, who's our oldest, we would go out and go shopping and go look at, audio equipment or.
And how old were your kids at that time?
So we just had Britt, and she must have been 4 or 5 months or somewhere in there. And
so she was just on a daddy backpack.
Oh, yeah. She was just stroller, putting it in, She wasn't really a toddler, per se, walking around or anything. So, it wasn't, I didn't have to chase anybody at that point, so that part was good. But it was great. It was fun. It was good, have dinner ready and have, it was just, I think I was more playing a role, but eventually we knew that wasn't the absolute solution because Jody really wanted to be home. And so we sacrificed. That was a huge part of our marriage is we wanted to make sure that she could stay home with the kids and go on field trips. And that was something we always really focused on. And so there's a lot of things that we didn't get or didn't do because we wanted to make sure that she could stay home and do that. And that's, unfortunately, I was able to get in the car business and did very well and was able to make enough where she could stay home and, be with the kids. And but that was a fun time in my life to stay home and take care of Britt.
Very, very nice. So now you're kind of on more of a traditional path. You're doing the work and she's taking care of the kids. Was this still in the Bay Area?
This was in the Bay Area. We were in the Bay Area for about 15 years. That was she grew up there. So I got a California girl, so that's another check, So car, California girl, everything was going great. And so we were back on track.
And so she had family there in the area?
She had family, not generational family. She was the youngest. I think I want to say 7. I should know, but she was the youngest. And so her parents were much older and they're relatives. So she didn't really grow up with aunts or uncles or anything, but I did, and I missed a little bit of that. And so we ended up actually moving back to Utah. Some of it was a little bit more because of our faith, because we were open on Sunday here, and we really wanted to focus on going to the temple and, getting married in the temple. And so we moved back to Utah.
I think one of the underlying things I'm hearing from you in this process is that you and your wife were very intentional about how you wanted your family to be, how you wanted your marriage to be, how you wanted your children to be raised. What helped you guys kind of have that intentionality in your marriage? What helped you make it work and be so happy? I think
when we first met, me being from multiple families, I was able to step back and as a kid, or maybe as an adult, you realize your parents are people too. And so I was able to actually get that much earlier and know, they were from certain families and that's all they knew. And my wife was from a certain family, but we were able to step back and say, okay, what can we do to build our life? And so even before we got married, we were researching on relationship programs and, really studying on what we can do to have a good relationship and communicate. I think that really helped. And then we wanted to make sure that the things that we knew at that time, when we were young, that it was set. So there was a lot of what if this happens, what if that happens, that we had plans and things to, in place. And so that really helped us go through all these different changes. And I was pretty blessed to have a great wife like Jody. I think I put her through a lot in, being in the car business and, working crazy hours and working on commission. And I started other businesses in between. And so I think, I was very blessed to find her to be able to help me through that.
Well, and you kind of grew up with that, an entrepreneurial family where maybe it's feast, maybe it's famine.
That's how it is. So I was used to it. I was like, hey, this is how life is. So for me, it wasn't a big deal.
And it sounds like, so in your childhood, you did the Utah, California, and then you started doing it as an adult as well.
Yeah, we did. We tried it out only for a couple of years in Utah, and then we really missed the Bay Area. We really missed the ward, and just because if all you have to rely on is, the stake and the ward, it's just much closer. And the youth program, again, was so much different in the Bay Area than it was where we lived in Utah. And so our kids were getting a little older, and we thought, hey, let's make sure we go back and start a family there. And so that's when we're in the Bay Area for a long time.
And so how did we jettison from Utah, Bay Area, Utah, Bay Area, Utah, Bay Area Chico?
That's a good question. I was working for a dealer group for quite some time, and I was upper management, and we decided we want to get out of the Bay Area at this point, just because this was in 2000s, maybe 2010, 2009, somewhere in that range, kind of after the financial crash, which for us was actually, it was challenging, but it was great because we were selling cars that got great gas mileage. And so being in the business wasn't as rough as it was for everybody else in 2008 or 9. And so, but we wanted to get out. The Bay Area was just getting way too crowded. Growing up in the 90s there, it was like a totally different area.
Oh, the 80s were awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so we were going to San Francisco on the weekends, and we were 17, 18-year-old, going to do that. I couldn't do that now. So we decided to move out, and I had lots of opportunity, just being in the business as long as I was and making a name. And so we could either go to San Diego or Chico. And the people that I worked for owned a portion of a dealership here in Chico and said, well, go check out Chico. It's great. He still wanted me to be part of the group. And they were transitioning part owners out. And he said, go check it out. And so we came up to Chico, but we didn't realize that it was a tournament, a Chico State tournament that weekend we came up. So we didn't get a hotel or anything. And we brought our kids up, and we're like, oh, look, this is great. But we actually ended up staying at the Matador Inn. That was our first experience in Chico.
So anybody who doesn't know Chico well, the Matador Inn is not a top hotel.
No.
We'll put it that way.
My poor kids.
It's very French. It's very French.
Tile floors, it was pretty scary. And they were like, what are you doing? They started to panic a little bit. And but after we stayed a couple days, we were able to move. But it was just funny. That was our first introduction to Chico. So we decided that between San Diego and Chico, that Chico would be a much better place to raise a family. Maybe it wasn't a huge career move, but it was still a place where we could still survive and have opportunities. And it worked out great. We've had more opportunities in this area than I think we could have ever had anywhere else.
Well, and again, it sounds like family was much more important to you than business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did your children like it?
I think so. I think they liked it. When we moved here, our oldest, Britt, she was just going into high school. So it was kind of a good transition. If we're going to move, this would be the time. And I think she enjoyed it, hopefully. You never know.
Can you tell us a little bit about your kids?
Yeah, so we have Britt, who's our oldest, and she is graduating at BYU in the BFA program. She's worked really hard.
And BFA is?
I believe it's Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Yes.
I just know she's in character development. She is an extremely talented artist in all mediums, and she is finally graduating. She had to work hard. She started out at UVU and then actually had to apply to that program and was able to get in. And so we're excited for her. She'll be the...
BYU has one of the best animation programs in the world. So that's really cool that
she's done really well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're going out this month to celebrate with her. And then I have Ty. And Ty's our middle. And he works for Sunbelt Rental right now. But he went to automotive school. Was more or less just like, hey, I want to know how to work on cars so I could get a better job while I finish school. And then he was able to get some really good stair-step jobs. And now he's working for the largest rental company in the world for equipment. So he's a trainer actually through it. So he's doing well. He's having fun and enjoying that. And then Shelby's our youngest.
And how old is she?
Shelby is 21. She'll be 21 this month, actually, in April. So, and she did a career in dance. That was our vacations for a long time, is going to dance conventions. And so that was really fun to go through there. And she just got married in January. So that's been really fun. She actually went to the Feather River Temple. She was one of one of the first couples to actually go through there. And so it's been great. It's been fun. So she's
that is great because at that point, the Feather River Temple would have only been open for, 3 months or so?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and she actually, it's a funny story there. She was actually an ordnance worker for almost a year in Sacramento with my wife. And then her and her now husband were friends, and they started dating, and then they started working at the temple together. And so I wouldn't recommend that, having, boyfriend, girlfriend work at the temple together. Because plans change, and they start saying, well, we can do this, and they got married. So.
But it turned out good.
It did. It turned out good. He's a great guy, and they're having fun.
So does that make you an empty nester now?
Yes, it does.
How does that feel?
We miss our kids greatly, but secretly, it's awesome.
It's like retirement from one of your jobs.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And, you're still part of, raising adult children is much different than having the kids there. They don't like unsolicited advice. You're really more there to support role, which is great. But it's been great. It's like on vacation right now for us. So it's good.
And are you guys kind of reconnecting as a couple?
It's one of the things that we really wanted to make sure we did was, I think everybody always wants to date your girlfriend or boyfriend. And we made sure that we always focused on that. So we continuously dated each other throughout our marriage, which it'll be 30 years next year.
That is
next
wonderful.
Year, to make sure I get that right. So
yeah, you do have to make sure you get that right.
So, yeah, it was great.
Any other adventures from your life that we haven't touched upon?
I think, I think I feel I'm younger with a lot of miles. I think I've gone through a lot of life. I think there's a lot of life experiences. I think the biggest thing is I've been with Jody longer than I've not been with her at this point. And I think finding your best friend and being able to marry her and be able to go through challenges in life really makes a huge difference when you do have those things that pop up in life that are, either challenging or fun or great. But, I think that's a huge part is, find your best friend, marry, and a lot of the other problems will come away and won't have to worry so much. So.
And it's really been wonderful to listen to you. And like I said, the thing I walk away with is this real sense of intentionality with how you have lived your life. And I think that that's a message that people need to hear. And part of what we do this webcast for is for posterity. So what is the message you would want to leave for our viewers, whether they are future family or present friends, about how to have a life that follows the plan of happiness?
Well, that's a good question. I think one of the things that made a huge difference where I started is, being in the car business, you don't really go to college for that. And so I needed to learn how to learn first. And, so I took a lot of different things outside of the normal education path. I took a lot of seminars and took a lot of, when you're in sales, that's great. It's a totally different ballgame than just going to college and getting a job. It's much different. Not saying it's bad, but it is something you have to learn. And then when I got into management, I learned it's not about management, it's about leadership. And so I really focused on learning how to lead. That was the first thing I did in my career, because that's what makes people and companies move, is leadership. And so that was the first thing I would say, is learn how to learn. Know how to take something that's known and attach it to something that's unknown, so you can learn on your own. So you can go out and want to learn this, go research it, find it, and be able to move forward. Even today, I'm usually reading 3 or 4 different books at a time. Whether it's, I try to separate it out, whether it's, a leadership book or a spiritual book, and then maybe, some type of I don't want to say or fiction, fiction, so that keeps me on my toes. They always continuously learn, and that's the first part. So I would say the next thing is make sure you have a higher power. Make sure you believe in a higher power. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, we have the knowledge of where we were from, why we're here, where we're going. That makes a huge difference in your life. But just having a higher power, whether it's you believe in nature or the universe or something, knowing that there's a reason that you're here, that's a huge step. That's a huge belief system that kind of lays the foundation for everything else. I think the other thing is knowing when to be a coach and a cop. And that's part of the leadership thing. And I wish I would have learned that much earlier when my kids were younger, because there's times when I should have been much better at a coach than a cop. I think after 5 years old, you don't have much control. They're pretty much done, and they are who they're going to be. I mean, they are who they're going to be when you first get them. But our kids have really taught us more than anything. They are all similar in some ways, but much different in other ways. They all have their own personalities and their own beliefs on, what they feel they should do and what they want to do. And that has been amazing to watch. And so I think that was something that we really wanted to instill with them, that, make sure you're independent, make sure you can think on your own. And so, being a coach and being a cop makes a huge difference, especially, with kids and, in management as well. But there's a lot of times where I wish I would have been more of a coach. And I'm hearing that's what grandkids are for. Not saying I want grandkids right now, but I'm hearing that gives you a little second chance sometimes. But I don't need any grandkids right now. We're good. We're good for a while. I think the other things is really making sure that you do set your own belief systems up. Being a member of the church gives you that foundation. I think another important thing that really helped me in my life is communication. Learning early on how to communicate, but most importantly, how to communicate with yourself. What you say to yourself makes a big difference on who you are in your life and how you deal with challenges and problems and things that come up. And so creating that belief system when you communicate with yourself makes a huge difference.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit? So when you say create a belief system that you communicate with yourself, are you talking about like your testimony?
Definitely.
Of the gospel?
I think it's
of our Savior?
It's definitely more holistic as a member. That helps me tremendously because I'm able to have an eternal perspective on things and when things might go wrong, have that belief that, this is part of the plan and this is something that either we're here to learn or go through. And so that makes a big difference when things come up. And it's not that it's all challenges, but, that's one of the reasons that I feel we're here is to be able to learn. And so a belief system would be, that's really served me was life is just a classroom. And sometimes we sign up for those classrooms and other times the Lord signs us up for those classrooms. And sometimes we have to take the class again because we didn't learn the first time. But in a classroom, there's no pass or fail. You're learning the whole time. And so as you're learning and as you're growing, you're able to understand more things and maybe get another class, whether you wanted it or not, or you wanted to sign up for it. But I think understanding that and then looking at others, they're in their own classroom, no one would put fault on a 4-year-old learning trigonometry. They would be like, well, how would they know trigonometry? They're not even in that right classroom. They haven't grown. But yeah, I think we judge a lot of people and say, well, they should know what I know, or they should know this because they're in my same classroom. But that's not fair. Everyone's in their own classroom learning different things. And so when we look at life at that level, it helps to be there for each other and not have to judge as much. So it makes a huge difference.
Thank you so much. So I feel like this intentionality, that's what I'm going to call you from now on. You're just my intentional man, has really been a characteristic throughout your life. And I think it's brought you great leadership skills and great joy. And thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.